What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 38 of Feel the Heat. You guys get me a little bit earlier than usual tonight, which means that my enthusiasm might be like slightly up.
I
No,
don't, I don't, I don't think I've ever seen you enthused.
that's not true.
I really don't think I've ever watched you on a show or
Oh, on a
recorded
show.
well, yeah, I when we've been on other shows together and when
Okay,
we've
yeah, I mean,
recorded
I
things
can, yeah, that might be true. I was just gonna say, like, in general, my personal life, because I could think of like 7 instances off the top of my head.
I mean, you're just a pretty monotone human being.
I'm a balanced type of bitch.
You call it balance, I call it gray and boring. So,
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not boring. Sometimes I wonder what life would be like if I was, but that ain't it for here.
if you were what?
Boring.
Oh, I mean, it's just exactly what we're doing now, hosting Feel the Heat.
No, I think it would be a simpler life,
Well,
but I'll
one can
never
dream.
know.
One can dream.
I don't even know where to go from here
Uh,
because this just took a
Oh,
crazy turn.
I got it. You want a
Okay.
simple life? A simple life is one that isn't in the middle of a pandemic filled world
Season 3 of the pandemic going
that is
strong.
now infesting everything all over again, even though it never really went away. And the NBA continues to be I don't know how to,
Ravaged?
yeah, it's like a horrible example. The NFL's being really bad about it too. Um, I don't I don't know what the solution is. I've heard people mention, well, they should shut down the league for a couple weeks. Don't shut down the league a couple weeks. I've heard both sides of the argument. I mean, I don't know where you stand. Personally, I don't think shutting down is going to do enough because I think if they shut down, then the NBA is going to sit there and be like, oh, we don't need to do all the serious testing because we shut down for 2 weeks and we're fine. And let's be honest, it's not like those players for 2 weeks aren't going to go and get themselves exposed again, right? Because, yeah, a lot of the league is in the protocol, but the part of the league that currently isn't is probably going to have to enter it right after. And this isn't always a 2 weeks and you're out kind of thing. Vaccinated or not, you can still come through positive. So it's just one of those things where if they're going to shut this down, take it seriously, make it like a month or more, and have very strict protocols when you come back. But because they're not going to do that, I mean, just push forward and have people sit out games. That's all there is.
I don't know. My gut reaction is to press pause, but to me, I feel like there's holes that we aren't filling right now in terms of information. Something wonky is going on, and I'm not trying to sound like LeBron's tweet about there being some fish in the sea, if you will, but it just, okay. I obviously am very happy and grateful that the Heat were able to, except for Caleb Martin so far, not really run into any COVID issues. With that being said, it's just strange to me how the transmission across the league is working. If we only use logic, the Heat after playing the Bulls should have been cooked. And I think all of us were kind of in that mindset of, okay, we're screwed now. Nothing happened. And then all of a sudden you have other teams that, if you do the whole kind of trace contacting thing, maybe shouldn't have been exposed. And now all of a sudden have all their guys out. Then you've got guys like Russ who are out for 2 games, the whole positive, negative, false positive thing with LeBron. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't feel like we're getting the whole story. Obviously, outside of the league, things are really bad. That is not to be, I mean, there's no other way of saying that. Things are awful out there, and it's the transmission rate is crazy. But something within the league, to me, there's just something that we're not understanding. And I don't know if that's different teams getting different vaccines, some teams being boosted and others not. I don't know if it has to do with attendance at the games. But right now, I just don't feel like we have the whole story. So I don't really know where I stand.
I think for me, the big thing too is, so I think a lot of the players may not be coming out positive because I think to a certain rate, the vaccine is working. Yes, the vaccine is not 100% effective in making sure that you don't get COVID, but it does help you to not get it, right? It does fight off a good amount of it. So there may be times where players are very close to it and basically would have gotten it if not for the vaccine. And so they're not coming out as positive. You also have to realize that all these players' lives aren't stopping, right? They go to these different cities. I'm hoping that they're not going out and doing a bunch of things, but I don't know that to be the case. And when you consider the fact that for a lot of places, the world has kind of opened back up to the point where you don't really have to wear a mask, then, how do you stop the transmission from happening outside of games, right? They're going to bring them in, and it just kind of is what it is. So again, if they want to stop it, so be it. If they want to continue, so be it. I just don't think that the NBA is taking this seriously enough and really looking at it from a what's the solution here to make any difference. They're just going to say, oh, we'll just push through. It's going to be fine. They're vaccinated. They're going to be okay. The issue is, in my opinion, if you are positive, I don't care if you're asymptomatic and vaccinated, you should not be out there playing.
Well,
any
and
sport.
that out of everything shocked me the most when that report came out that certain people, and I'm not going to harp on this too much because I will literally get canceled and never brought back. Spo made a similar comment. It wasn't word for word kind of touching upon that, what article I think you're referring to, but he did basically say that if guys are asymptomatic, then how is it any worse than a cold or a flu and people play through that? To me, that's crazy. With the transmission rate, it does not matter if you don't feel a damn thing but boredom, like what DeMar DeRozan was saying, sit your ass at home. That is a non-negotiable for me. The rest, I can see both sides.
Yeah, I look, I think if you're vaccinated and you're asymptomatic and you've got your negative tests, you go out there, you play the game. I don't care if you just came back positive yesterday and you got your 2 negative tests today. It's okay, go out there, do your thing. But at the very minimum, we should require something, and that something should be a negative test because, again, we don't know exactly how the transmissions work. And yeah, again, for somebody that's vaccinated, we can assume if they do get COVID, the hope is if you do get it, the most of it you're going to have is a bit of a runny nose, maybe a slight cough, and you're going to be okay. That's the hope. That's part of why you get the vaccination in the first place. But we don't know how it impacts everybody. And there are people out there that are immunocompromised that, vaccinated or not, they're still going to go to the hospital if they get it. And I don't think anybody wants that to happen. So I just think, look, if you've tested positive, there is no rhyme or reason why you should be out there on the court. Even if it was a false positive, which happened all the time, you should not be out there because that is all the information we have. If you think it's a false positive, go get more tests. Go find that negative. Until then, sit down at home. Don't even sit down on the bench. Sit down at home, wear a mask, stay away from people, do the right thing.
My last thought on this topic is, do you think that we're just buying time until after Christmas? Because the thought had crossed my mind of, okay, Christmas Day is a huge thing for the league. And selfishly, that is probably now my favorite part of Christmas. So yeah, I want games to be on, but do we think that we're just trying to get past that? And then after that, they'll actually start evaluating whether or not to pause the season?
I think they'll think about it, right? I think it'll be part of it. I think that's definitely a big part of why they're not doing it now, because again, the Christmas games are a ton of money for the NBA. I mean, it's like asking the NFL to postpone the Thanksgiving games. Those are big. That is tradition. That is home, right? That is what people feel. I think that's part of it. I again just think the biggest thing is the NBA to me doesn't feel like they're really taking it that seriously.
No,
it just doesn't feel like they think it's that big a deal. It feels like the majority of the NBA feels like, it's okay. They'll get over it. It's just a cold. And so they're just going to keep pushing through. Again, for a league that was kind of the first one to say, okay, we're shutting down completely because we cannot continue to do this, to now be the league that's saying, no, we'll push you just fine and barely postpones games. I mean, I'm talking about they really don't want to do it unless literally government gets involved.
Don't worry, though. Now we can sign more players because that's what matters here. To make it easier for teams to play during an outbreak. Let's not postpone. Let's not take a pause. Let's give you more players to infect so we can keep playing.
No, I mean, let's use this as a transition point, because that really big game of using a lot of these quick signed players, he played the Magic last Friday night. I was there. I can go into that in a little bit. I think the Magic signed 4 or 5 guys out of the G League. And lucky enough for the Magic, their G League team is maybe like an hour south, right? It's there in Lakeland, Florida. It's really close to Orlando. So it's really just a bus ride over. Now, they may have been somewhere else and they had to get flown in anyways, but it's easy for them to kind of incorporate them a little bit more, right? Unlike the Heat, who have to send people all the way to Sioux Falls,
Mhm.
which I'm not even 100% sure where that is. Is that in one of
South
the Dakotas?
Dakota.
Oh, it's South Dakota. Okay. That's far as hell. Don't nobody live in South Dakota.
Mhm.
Okay. Except for whoever the coach of Sioux Falls is for a little bit until he hopefully gets the call back to come to the Miami Heat. I just think like they brought up, what was it? It was 4 players and they barely were able to play that game. And then during the game, they lost Wendell Carter,
Mhm.
who was one of their only actual NBA players on the floor that day. I think it was Gary Harris got into foul trouble immediately. And so they had to rely quickly on those G League guys. Yeah, sure. You can keep playing the season. You can keep letting people sign reserve guys. But I'm telling you right now, the product that's being put out there on the floor is completely different. And the level of competition is so crazy that to think that this season is going to be like a completely like real one.
Oh no.
Gonna be, like
if I was calling last year an asterisk season, this year is literally this year is some weird NBA simulation. This isn't real. I'm sorry. It's just not. And the thing is, I'm not actually even referring to the Heat at this point, because again, all the Heat's injuries, except for, Caleb Martin, who is out on protocol, everyone else has legitimate injuries. But teams like the Magic or any other, the Bulls at one point had to be postponed because they literally couldn't even play before this new rule came up. Like, this isn't real. The level of competition is completely skewed. And if I were a team like the Magic, honestly, I might rather take a pause than go out there with a bunch of G Leaguers who, hey, they're getting shine and good for them, but A, it's not real. And B, they're also, like I said, getting exposed to the virus. So I don't know. It just, whatever happens this year, to me, it's just not, we're just muddling through weirdness. Maybe by the time the playoffs come, it'll be actually competitive basketball again, but I don't know what I'm watching for now.
Yeah, I think personally there are going to be enough games to kind of normalize a lot of what's happened. Personally, I just think, very statistics, math minded. I think it's going to start normalizing.
I think COVID's only getting worse. So I think we've seen the most normal games already, to be honest.
I think it's getting really bad. And I think the month of January is going to be terrible because all
absolutely.
the people with
After
the holidays and everything. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
it's just going to be a massive sweep across everything.
And it's also going to get worse in those cities that are colder, because that's part of the problem is people are congregating inside. It's not like we can go outdoor, dining or just hanging out
and nobody wants to lose the congregating again, because we went through that for some people what felt like what was an actual year of things being completely shut down. In Florida, I think we were shut down for like a month because
COVID's not real in Florida. You didn't hear?
Listen, I think it was Universal Studios opened up like, I think it was May or like the first day of June.
I'm embarrassed for y'all, honestly.
Like it was like immediate, and their solution was, nah, you're going to be fine. When you get on the ride, we're just going to squirt some hand sanitizer directly into your hand. They didn't even have one of the automatic machines for you to like put your hands underneath. They had a cast.
It doesn't matter that everyone's screaming and things are transmitting through the air.
You had to wear your mask the entire time. But yeah, they literally had a team member there with the bottle, just like, all right, hands. And they would squirt, and it smelled bad too. It was like that bad smelling hand sanitizer. You know what I'm talking about?
It smells like alcohol.
No. They smelled worse than alcohol. Like this had a very like weird smell to it. It was weird times. Yeah, in Florida, we don't take it seriously. Like nothing is going to shut down ever again. They're just not going to do it. But yeah, listen, the Heat just went through it. Right? They played some teams that have had really, really bad luck. One of them being the Magic. Last 4 games that they've played since we last recorded, they've gone 2-2. They lost to the Cavaliers in a game that both you and I said had the possibility to be a statement game for them, to be like, look, this is us for real. We beat those good teams. We can beat everybody. Well, they kind of flopped against the Cavs.
And fun fact for everyone listening, I actually put that as a win in our rundown for today, because apparently my brain could not comprehend the fact that we lost that game. I was like, oh yeah, easy dub. I just wrote that down. I was wrong.
Easy dub against the Cavs?
It's supposed to be, in my head at least.
But then isn't that just part of Heat Nation and our whole like bad teams are always bad thing?
I don't know. I'm not part of said nation that you speak of.
You got on my case for being upset we lost to the Cavs because I called the Cavs a trash organization. You're like, oh, easy dub.
No, but I was saying it should be a statement bounce back win, to your point.
Yeah, it should have been, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Right. But that in my head, I registered it as a win because I was like, duh, we came out and won. No.
I feel like we're not going to beat the Cavs at all this season. I don't know if we play them again. I'm not sure. There's just something about Kevin Love that he just gets really juiced playing our team.
Ew, I
right?
don't like that word.
What, juiced?
Oh, I hate it.
What's
I
wrong with
just
that?
realized it right now. I have shit like literally chills from that in the worst way.
What about just the word juice?
No, that's fine.
Okay, but juiced.
You know how like some people are with the word moist?
Right.
Moist doesn't bother me, but apparently
What word? Can you
that
say
one
it?
juiced. Oh, I hate that.
Okay, well,
I'm genuinely so uncomfortable.
everybody listening and or watching, if you really want to annoy Allana, just send like audio clips of people saying the word
Yeah, because
juiced.
I don't think it.
Typed out's probably not going to be an issue.
Yeah,
Maybe type it out too. Annoy the hell out of Allana. This will be fun.
This
But
is
yeah,
not the game we're trying to play.
oh, it's a fun game. The Heat go and lose to the Cavaliers. Then they go to Philadelphia and remind the process why that's a piece of shit, as we usually do. Looking like a good, competent team in ways that it's like, what was that other game?
No one was happier about that win than Alex Toledo. I have not ever seen anyone.
Alex hates Philadelphia.
It was literally like Christmas morning recording with him that night. Like it was the.
We've had this
convo
before though, because you don't hate Philadelphia.
Oh no, I do. Are you kidding?
Oh, I feel like we had a conversation because I hate Philadelphia and the Celtics.
Oh yeah. No, I hate Philly.
I don't like the Bulls. And that's all because of Derrick Rose stealing the MVP.
Oh, okay. They're my second team.
And the Lakers, just because it's a bunch of bandwagon
I like the Lakers
fans.
too. Like, I think it's the Lakers we disagreed on before. No, I really don't like Philly at all. I hate Embiid.
I hate Embiid, but if he was wearing the Heat colors.
Oh, see, absolutely not.
This conversation I know we've had.
Yeah.
I'd be down with it. Then the Heat
Embiid is something that I don't want to say right now on our podcast, but that
Embiid
phrase,
or juiced? What's the worst word?
I really have never discovered this before, and now I'm like visibly uncomfortable. Like I hate that there's a visual of this now.
It's so weird. All right, then the Heat go and they beat the Magic, the Lakeland Magic to be precise.
Maybe it's because you were there.
I tweeted that out. I told, listen, Ethan better get it together because I have been credentialed for one game in my entire life. The Heat are 1-0. Max Strus and Gabe Vincent literally had their career highs in shooting. In points. Listen, Ethan, you got to get me more credentials, bro. Fly me down to South Florida for every game. Like I think it's worth it for the Heat to win.
Ethan needs to sit his butt at home and just send you because
know
what he
Ethan,
does.
Yeah, he's a terrible luck charm. And Ethan actually then flew out to Detroit where the Heat lost 100-90 to the Detroit Pistons. I don't actually think Ethan was there, but he might as well have been.
Yeah, honestly. His spirit was there for sure.
Anything in those last four games really jump out to you as anything that is meaningful moving forward? And I'm gonna let you talk for as long as you need to, but I say that because this is not the complete Heat team, right? Like this team is not whole. They're missing very key pieces. Number two, the teams that they're playing against aren't all built the way that they are going to be moving forward. And you can tell watching the guys out there on certain nights and at certain moments, like not everybody is there mentally. So is there anything from these games that you take and you're like, this is real actionable and meaningful moving forward?
The first thing that jumps out at me is the 76ers win. I think that at least proves the theory of us more so being built for the playoffs. And I don't think that it matters who's in or who's out, regardless of if we have a full team or not. The way that this team is constructed, and not just this team, but the way that most teams that Riley puts together or that he wants to construct in that way are for the playoffs. So I think that was a great example of that. I'm not saying that like, had we lost that I would have said, oh, look, we're not built for the playoffs. But in my mind, that solidified that. I think the most controversial game, as exhibited by a lot of what's happening on Heat Twitter today, was the loss to
which
the
one?
Pistons.
There was two of them.
Well, to the Pistons in particular, because there seems to be a very split. And usually what's interesting to me is usually I feel like most of Heat Twitter aligns. And then there's like a few outliers, usually me included, that go completely against it. Right now, I feel like there's just like a split down the middle of Heat Twitter, half of which are saying that was an awful loss and should have never happened. And the other half saying, listen, we're crumbling right now. This is not representative of the team. It's normal that we took that L, or it doesn't really represent what we're going to be moving forward. And again, strangely enough, because I'm quite opinionated usually, I'm right in the middle. To
Hmm.
me, we shouldn't have lost, but I get why we did. And so it doesn't bother me that much. So, in a weird way, I can kind of understand both sides, but I'd like to know how you feel.
So that's tough. I think for me, I'm both of them. I'm not in the middle. I am both
Okay.
extremes, right? I am both. That loss shouldn't have happened. It is slightly embarrassing to me that
Mm-hmm.
it did. When you consider the fact that the Pistons are 5-24,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the Heat were on a roll in terms of getting things back together after the win against Philadelphia, after the win against the Magic, where certain players shined and shined
Mm-hmm.
big, and for other players, it was basically a night off. I was there. I watched the effort from some of those guys. Like, I mean, let's be completely honest. Duncan is always going to give the effort, but he didn't even have to be out there on the
Mm-hmm.
floor for the Magic game. We saw that, right? Like, it was a night off for a good amount of them. And then to come out the next night looking flat, not ready to play, now wanting to play, that's embarrassing. There are things from that loss that do worry me moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Duncan shooting creeped back into what are you doing, right? 2 for 10. You can't do that. Uh, Kyle Lowry's shooting not efficient, right? But at least he was pressing. He was trying to get things going. There are things from that loss that worry me, and I think we do need to look at moving forward. But at the same time, I'm all the way on the other extreme where it's like, yeah, but if Jimmy or Bam is out there,
So
I
we
mean, we
like
win that
agree,
game.
but in a different way,
Right.
which is very on brand for us.
Right. Like it sucks. I hate that we lose to the Pistons. I hate that we
Mm-hmm.
lose those games. I hate that we lose to the Cavaliers. I don't care where the Cavaliers are in the standings. Talent wise, in my opinion, that is much further behind the Heat than I think a lot of other people look like, at least when the Heat were together and lost the first time.
That loss doesn't bother me as much as Detroit, though.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely
Yeah.
not. I think if it bothers me at all more, it's just because I don't like Cleveland after the whole LeBron stuff. But yeah, the Detroit one definitely is more worrisome. But again, it's like, look, it sucks. There are things that I can take from that do worry me moving forward. But at the same time, it's like, look, again, Jimmy or Bam, maybe even Victor or Tyler, any one of those guys is out there. That's probably a win for the Heat.
PJ also went down and will not be playing tomorrow against the Pacers. And I obviously have a bias. I love PJ. I've loved him from the second we signed him. I actually loved him in Milwaukee as well, but he has been quite consistent for us in one way or another, whether it's offensively or defensively, or honestly, just like holding team morale up.
Yeah.
His being out, that honestly concerns me probably a lot more than a lot of other people that I've seen. I know it doesn't seem like a huge injury. He said he's already feeling better. It might just be very cautionary of, hey, let's take him out for one game, just not to like test our luck and then bring him back. But that to me changes a lot, not just again on the court, but in terms of now the team mentally has to deal with yet another injury. So I'm not saying we lost because PJ went out, but it is something also to consider of that happened during the game where we were already kind of struggling. It didn't help.
Yeah. So rough times all around for the Heat in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
They play the Pacers and Pistons next 2 games.
Yeah,
Actually,
I don't like this week at all for the
Actually,
Heat.
I'm going to throw in all 3 between now and when we
Sunday
record again, which actually might not be until later, obviously, holiday travels.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go the 4. Let's go the 4. He have a 4-game homestand against the Pacers, the Pistons, the Magic, and the Wizards.
Yeah, I literally hate all these matchups, except for maybe the Wizards.
Right. The Wizards feels like the one that they're going to really step up to because it's like, ooh, one of the better teams. They have Bradley.
Like, am I going to enjoy Heat basketball this week at all? I don't know.
Probably not. What is the Miami Heat's record over those next 4 games?
2-2.
You say 2-2? I'm gonna go 3-1. I'm gonna go 3-1.
Okay. What's
the one? You know what? The one I don't know. That's just a toss up. It could literally be any one of them. I have very little faith that they will go 4-0 because
absolutely
they've just been way too inconsistent. But I also have confidence enough that they'll get enough together to win at least 3 of those 4 games. I think the one, like you said, the one game I am most confident about is the Wizards.
Yeah, like I think
Easily.
I'll enjoy that one. The rest,
Right.
I'm just gonna
And I
cross
think
my
by the
fingers.
Wizards game, there's a chance that Markieff is back. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe
So that would change things up a little bit. Probably
PJ might be back by then too, especially if they're just being
right.
cautious.
So hopefully that happens. But yeah, I'm gonna say 3-1. You say 2-2.
Yep.
I'm not 100% sure when we're recording again because of travels and stuff, but we will review that later. Now, culture player of the week. Ladies first.
We actually didn't discuss off air, which I think
We
is
did
the
not.
first time. Mine is Max Strus. Did I take yours?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry. We can both have like double props.
No,
to Max.
I'll come up with another one.
Well, there's an obvious other one here. It was really a toss up for me, but I
not gonna
have
be
to
Gabe
go with him
Vincent.
because he went to DePaul.
Okay. Well,
He looked good, like so good.
in that Magic game,
Yeah, and even honestly, some of the looks he was getting against the Pistons, even though obviously it did not go according to plan for the rest of the team, or even I actually don't even know what his stat line was from that night. But some of those shots, the confidence is up. And I've always said he just needs more reps. He is not the guy that can just come in quick, warm up, and then go out. I just think he needs like some steady, consistent playing time, and he'll be fine.
against the Pistons, he was 7 of 16 from the floor, 4 of 11 from 3 specifically. He actually had 8 free throws, which is a good amount for him. 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 4 personal fouls. Not great, but he did score 24 points. It was our highest scorer on the night. The person behind him was Kyle Lowry.
I don't even need to look at the box score. The eye test told me everything.
Right. The eye test is very important. And I can tell you that my answer was going to be Max Strus because when I was at that Magic game, so I've been to games before where the Heat play against the Magic here in Orlando. Funny enough, this was the first win I've seen in Orlando for the Miami Heat in my lifetime. I grew up in Miami, so I didn't get a chance to go to too many games.
You have to be credentialed.
Right. I've been to 5 games. This was the 5th. I've been to 5 total games. Orlando Magic versus the Miami Heat here in Orlando, and the Heat have lost 4 out of 5.
Ethan, you know what to do.
So
that's for itself.
Either that or I just can't go to the game if I'm not credentialed.
That too.
That arena was loud when Max was cooking. When he really got going, I mean, they would pass him the ball, and you could feel the tension building in the arena. And the moment he let it go, it was a loud gasp of, and then when it fell, it was just a super loud.
Oh, I love that for
everybody.
him.
Everybody was loving Max Strus. The Miami Heat fans in there were showing out and being super loud because there's a lot of us here in Orlando. I have to give Culture Play of the Week to Max Strus as well.
Okay.
I do also. I didn't ask this when I was down there. Right, you got to see some of the people for pregame press conferences and postgame press conferences. I missed Eric Spoelstra's and Max Strus's because I was doing the postgame show on YouTube. If I had been down there, there's something I would have wanted to ask though, and that is how much. Are
you single? Because that's the question I had for him personally.
Yeah, I don't really want him
you could have asked on my behalf though.
Right, but hey, Max Strus, Michael Christian, 5 Reasons Sports. Quick
Allana
question:
wants
are
to
you
know.
single? And then him be like, hey,
no, you could have followed that. No, you could have asked your question and then been like, hey, by the way, quick follow up, my co-host.
No, I wasn't going to do that. But what I did want to ask him though was, and I tweeted this out at one point, there was one moment out there on the floor where it was Gabe Vincent, Marcus Garrett, Omer Yurtseven, Max Strus, and PJ Tucker. And with the exception of PJ Tucker, that was basically the summer league lineup. Gabe Vincent never played, but I'm pretty sure Gabe Vincent got plenty of practice reps while he was out there. I don't think he was there and not practicing. So I would have wanted to ask him how much because he was letting it fly and he looked exactly like he did at that summer league game when he was absolutely cooking. How much of it was just that comfortability of these are guys that I have much more history with? Because he's gotten to play with Kyle and Duncan and all of them. But these are guys he's really done a lot of work with.
And it's funny you say that because I'm pretty sure on the pregame show, Ricky mentioned that. And then I tweeted that during the game. So you're definitely not alone in noticing that. And I think it probably did play a huge role.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. I didn't notice either of your mentions because I didn't watch the pregame show. And honestly, for some reason, your tweets just don't come up on my timeline.
Your tweets don't come up on mine either, to the point where actually the other day I was like, did I accidentally mute him when I went on a spree of muting people? And I was like, no. And we engage pretty often. So Twitter needs to fix
Yeah.
this algorithm there.
It's because I have it on latest, and then it's this whole like weird
Oh,
thing.
I don't though.
Oh, I have it on latest, so like I miss big chunks of it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, Max Strus, Culture Player of the Week. I mean, he was absolute fire. I will disagree with you though on the minutes thing with him. I think he needs to have the opportunity for more minutes in every game. But there are times when he's just not on that it's like, okay, it's not happening tonight. Let's go somewhere else with it. Exactly what I'd like to do with Duncan Robinson. When Duncan is off, sit Duncan. Sit him. It's not happening, right? The three's not falling. He doesn't really need to be out there on the floor right now.
Yeah, it's hard though. And I know I've talked about this in terms of what Spo should do. It is a toss-up because when shooters go through slumps, whether that be from game to game or in the game, the like way to get them out of that is for them to keep shooting. But then, yeah, to your point, how long do you let them keep shooting until they become a liability? So, I mean, it's a toss up, but my point was more, I've seen shooters probably more so in college, to be honest, but kind of get right off the bench, get hot. And then if they're yanked and they never play again, that's great. And then the next game they can come in and do the same. For him, I actually think he needs time to warm up. And I think he needs those reps in consistently every night to work on his craft. Obviously, he's doing that in practice. He's doing that on his own time. But I just don't see him as the type of guy who just like the second he gets in there, he warms up. So I'm just glad that he gets more minutes right now.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough moving forward. So let's just say, and I don't even know when we're going to see it, if ever. I mean, fingers crossed we do. But if you have a fully healthy Heat team, he's got a hard like amount of minutes. He's got a hard time finding minutes. He's going to have a hard time finding minutes because, I mean, you've got, let's just say the whole team is healthy, right? Jimmy, Bam, Kyle, Duncan, PJ, starting five, most likely. Tyler, sixth man. Victor Oladipo, probably seventh man. Maybe at the same time as Markieff Morris, just to get more size in there. Dedmon's going to come in and get minutes. And then you've got that 10th spot, which that's already 9 guys, right? That's already 9. I don't see them going much deeper than that in the playoffs. If they do bring in a 10th, I mean, he's going to be competing with Gabe Vincent, and Gabe Vincent has been doing, in my opinion, a little bit more from a totality standpoint. The threes haven't been as good as they have for Strus, but from a totality standpoint, he does a little bit more, and he's that backup point guard. Maybe
the obvious answer here is getting rid of Duncan and just slotting Max Strus in, right? Isn't that how trades work? Can't you just plug and chug?
I mean, if you
trade Twitter Duncan, tells me that's how you.
But if you trade Duncan, it's not like you can just trade Duncan and put in Max Strus in those minutes.
No, that's what are you going to do with the person?
Right, but what would you do? Right, but I mean, the person that's coming in is going to need minutes.
No, we're just giving him away for free. We don't want him on the team anymore, so it's time to call it
I definitely don't want a draft pick because then Pat Riley's just going to trade those away in like a week after. So,
or we'll get them taken away when we tamper again.
Right, because it's totally fine to let people play with COVID, but God forbid you talk to a free agent a week before in a text that says, hey, we're interested.
Rules are rules, Mr. Michael.
Bad Pat Riley. Stupid effing Adam Silver with his bald head. Would you like to go to our Heat Twitter topics?
I would. We kind of covered this already, but I'll just touch upon it again. Heat Twitter got a little bit chaotic, more so than usual after the loss to Detroit. And now what I'm finding... So here's my thing, which maybe it's just me, but right now it all of a sudden looks like instead of hating on the team, which was what was happening when the team was full, now we are going to, you're making too many excuses just because we're completely hobbled doesn't mean we should be losing games. So I'm not really sure what the disconnect is here. It feels like there's a happy medium where we should just, I don't know, be logical always, regardless of if we're healthy or not. But do you think that as a whole, we're making too many excuses for this team currently?
Yes, I do kind of think so. Like after every loss, it's really easy for everybody to then be like, oh, well, you know, the injuries and COVID and mental states, not the same. So we lost, but
we literally do not currently have Jimmy, Bam, PJ, Keefe, Caleb Martin, Tyler. And then on top of that, I don't think I'm missing anyone.
Right. But if you,
and on top of that, Duncan maybe shows up half the time.
Right. But then, and this is the one place, and I'm partially playing devil's advocate, but I
No,
also do
that's
kind of
fine.
believe this.
I
Let's just say that the Heat were losing about half of these games and winning about half of these games. Now they're doing better than that, which I think is great because I expected at least 50-50. This is much better than that. Let's just say the games that they lost were to the Bucks and to the Bulls and to the 76ers, teams that we know and see as top teams in the Eastern Conference, right? Teams that would put up a fight if we were fully healthy.
I know where you're going with this, but to me, the thing that doesn't matter is that historically, I think that's two different issues. You're right, but historically, that's always been the case. I literally cannot remember a time, and I understand that I have not been a Heat fan since day one, whatever, but in my Heat fandom, I cannot remember a time where we didn't play up and down. Like, I think that's consistent regardless of who's on the roster.
I think every
if it's
team does that,
healthy
though,
or
to a
not.
certain extent. I think every team does that to a certain extent. I think it's also part of, I think it's also a two-way street. Again, I really do think it's a two-way street. I think it's Heat playing down to their opponent and that opponent that is kind of viewed as lesser being like, oh, we can go and take down these guys now. Right? Like there's that
but right
star on the
now,
other side.
I don't think that's hard. Like we're in shambles.
Right. But then we go, this is my beef. And I think there's a lot of people's beef. How the hell do you go and beat the Bucks and the Bulls and the 76ers, all projected to finish top 4 or 5 in the Eastern Conference, and then you go and lose to the Pistons? And in the game against the Magic, again, it's hard to take things from this because it's such a different lineup.
Well,
the game
and
against
that's
the Magic, I mean, defensively, they were struggling big time. Like
I don't know,
game
and
was
I
much
think
closer than
that's
it
part
should
of
have
the
been.
reason why I'm not married to an opinion. And again, for me, this is big because generally I have an opinion. I stick to it regardless. Right now, I'm just not married to anything. I can kind of see both sides, and I'm just chilling in the middle. Because to your point, like this isn't real. Again, I just feel like we're in some weird simulation.
Yeah, and again, too, it's like, I mean, for people like you and I that come on here and do our podcast, or people that go and do shows, whether it be post-game show on 5 Reasons, Heat Beat, Locked On Heat, whoever the heck is doing a show, you got to talk about something. And you can't just start it after every loss and be like, well, this is bad. And then after everyone be like, oh, this player is great, they're going to help us moving forward. Because at the same time, you can make the same excuse. Yeah, they won. And they scored, look, Max Strus scored 32 points. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't see Max Strus scoring 32 points at any point during the season if this team is fully healthy.
Oh, of course not. He's not even going to get the chance to do that.
So then it's hard to take anything from any game. So that's the one place I do see where those conversations are happening. But Duncan's shooting, I don't think magically gets better if Jimmy and Bam are out there. I don't think that Kyle Lowry's shooting efficiency gets that much better when they're out there. Now, I understand that's going to open up the floor a little bit more. But I mean, he's having really off nights, especially shooting from outside.
That's
and so
where
that's
I
where
don't
it's like,
agree. And it's not
with
from
him
like
being off or being worried about him being off.
No, with things not changing, like regardless of if Jimmy and Bam were out. This is an opinion that I will stick to until the way that this team is right now. And I'm not saying that it will be like this the entire season or a year from now. Right now, they need like a certain set of circumstances for them all to work. So for me, if Jimmy and Bam are out there, I actually do think we see more and better from Kyle because that's what he came in thinking that he was going to do. And right now it's just a bunch of adjusting every night. I also think somewhat because I do believe Duncan's slump or whatever you want to call it is not mechanical, it's mental, but I don't think it's just his own mental state
and let's give him
anymore.
credit. He's on the up recently.
He is. I'm just saying, I don't even think it's his own. I don't even think it's him reflecting on his own like role and how he's doing. I actually think it's just everything. I think it's one guy after another going out. So for me, that's where I will disagree. Where if we were fully healthy or healthier, I don't think we're going to see the same from guys like Kyle and Duncan. Max thing I agree with. He's not even getting an opportunity.
It's just frustrating again when I see it work, and I see it work so well in other games with these same lineups. And then you just, right, like it's not like this is the first time this group has played together.
I don't know.
Like you've had games together, like, and then you go and lose by 10 to the Pistons.
Probability, like we're not going to win every game. We're not going to lose every game.
Nobody's expecting us to win every game. But I mean, a game that you go into, I mean, I kind of was yelling, what was it, like 80 or 96 and 0? I mean,
102 and something at some point for you.
They really failed me. 104 and 0 because of
there you go. Yes, right.
I just think letting somebody like the Pistons shoot over 40% and letting the Magic shoot, I think they shot about 50%. Like those are things that I'm like, I'm not happy with. And again, our big key defensive anchors are out, but like, man, this is still Heat basketball.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to do it on the defensive end, then at least have him be pretty confident you're going to go shoot the lights out on the other end. And they're not doing that either. So it's a tough place to be right now. I do think the excuse making at some point, look, COVID is a thing for everybody. It's not something that the Heat can rely on their own. Injuries are a thing that can happen to anybody. They happen to the Heat at a much higher frequency, which is something that we've talked about before and something that concerns me about a lot of the guys. I don't want to throw the word injury prone out there, but these are a lot of missed games.
I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but one of my next topics was, should we be concerned about Jimmy and his ability to stay healthy? Because I will say this, I have had non-Heat friends in my life who are NBA followers bring this up to me where it's like, don't get too excited about your boy because he's going to be out most of the season. And then by the time he gets back, he's so rusty that he can't even make an impact in the playoffs. And yeah, okay, some of it was just kind of fueling my flame because they know I'm a huge Jimmy fan, but they somewhat have a point just in terms of being cautious that way. I don't necessarily think that it's one of those kind of things that I'm going to go looking at forward and say, okay, we can't rely on him in the playoffs. Again, last year to me wasn't really real either, but that is something to consider, considering he's been out quite a bit already this season.
What did Van Gundy tweeted out?
I did not see that.
I
did.
Jimmy
Yes,
Butler thing
comparing him to AD.
Yeah, in the last 3 seasons, Anthony Davis has missed, I think it was 38 regular season games. In that same 3 seasons, Jimmy Butler has missed 39 regular season games.
And if any of the people flaming me over the last couple seasons are listening to this, I'm going to hate it because I, to their face, vehemently disagree, but they're not wrong.
I mean, I know this about Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
The thing about Jimmy Butler that makes me not mind this, though, is that, look, I know every season Jimmy Butler is going to miss at least 8 to 15 games during the regular season. But when it's playoff time, he's going to take every painkiller he needs to. He's going to wrap everything that he needs to wrap. He's going to put every protective piece of clothing on, and he's going to go out there and he's going to give it his all because that is who he is. He was dying against the Lakers.
Last year, that didn't happen.
Last year didn't happen, but last year the team as a whole was failing.
Like
literally all of it. He was the leading charge of failure, right?
Yeah.
Like he was at the very front of the line saying, I failed first. Let's just be honest. But everybody was failing too.
No,
Nobody
and
was
it's
picking
not.
up anything.
He did not make or break our season by any means.
No.
I just thought it was interesting
sucked.
because I think in the beginning people were saying, "Oh, well, he's in a new organization and he's taking things more seriously, and the workouts are different and whatever." That's all well and good, but still something to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that I'm concerned, and I'm not saying I'm suddenly like not a Jimmy fan. I love Jimmy. It's just
here's the thing that does kind of put me at ease with Jimmy and then worry me about Tyler. And I'm going to be completely honest about it. Jimmy Butler plays a very rough style of basketball. His injuries, for the most part, make a lot of sense to me. Where he throws himself at the basket, however he needs to just try to get points.
Back with tailbone injuries.
Again, he throws himself at the basket, however he needs to. So it makes sense. He's going to get a lot of impact. This is going to happen. He needs to learn and develop a better outside game so that he doesn't have to do that as consistently, so that he can be out there more. All the greats that are good at driving to the basket eventually start leaning more on the outside game because they know I'm not going to be able to do it when I'm older because I'm not going to be as fast. I'm not going to be able to get up from those hits the same way. And if I don't get an outside game, I'm going to have nothing left. He needs to start focusing on that again. He's had it at points throughout his career. It's just not been consistent. He can't keep running into the hoop, running into a center and bouncing back up. It's not going to happen anymore. He's what, 31? 31 or 32? He's somewhere in that range, right? It's not going to be the same. Tyler's worried me a little bit more because I mentioned this to you a little while back and you said, no, this is different. Tyler every year has missed probably as many games as Jimmy Butler. And it's usually been like a neck thing or a lower back thing. And for a guy who doesn't play as reckless of a style of basketball as Jimmy, that sucks to see because that really tells me like this is lingering stuff that's going to keep happening. And I don't blame him at all. Like that, you can't do anything about that.
Right.
Right. I don't think that he's not working out. I think he's putting everything he can into basketball and his family. And that's exactly where it needs to be. But we can expect that from him moving forward as well. So if people are going to have a problem with Jimmy doing that, well, Tyler's going to do it basically every season that he's here. Bam is
sure. I think the difference is, and again, not to defend because I have crucified these people in my personal life, but the difference is Tyler's not necessarily your headliner. And yes, Bam and Tyler are the future at this point, sure. But I'm talking a year ago to it's Jimmy's team, right? So that's where I think it was just a little different of can you really rely on
and it's still Jimmy's team, but I think that was a big part of why they brought in Kyle Lowry. I think it's a big part of look, Jimmy's going to be out for certain games during the regular season. Kyle should be able to carry.
Kyle's not a spring chicken either, but he's built like a freaking tank.
Right.
So.
But he's better at running the offense. He's better at orchestrating. I mean, I think against the Magic, he had 10 assists in like 17 minutes, which is wild. Jimmy doesn't worry me that much. It's going to happen every year. It is what it is. And when it comes
I'm not worried. I think to me, it's just matter of fact.
I will say personally, for me, it does worry me with Tyler.
Okay.
Personally. What is he dealing with now?
Quad.
Was it quad? You see, look.
I think it's his leg.
It's always soft tissue stuff.
Okay, doctor.
I don't even know 100% what that means. I just heard it every time a player gets injured and gets injured all the time.
See, I knew it. Michael's just spewing things to spew.
Tell me he doesn't. He misses games all the time. I love Tyler Hero. I'm not trying to get rid of him.
A soft tissue issue.
Stay out there on the court, man. Get some hard tissue, not soft
pad
tissue.
And fix the problem. Let me take my stethoscope.
Do you think all physicians are British? Like, I don't.
Yeah. I think you think of yourself as that in your head too.
No. If I'm a doctor, I speak Spanish and I live in Orlando and I work down in Kissimmee and I deal with like the Hispanic population.
Oh, okay.
It's a legitimate thing. We have other things we can talk about, but the game is starting soon.
It is.
So as a final kind of little piece, I just want to say Kyrie Irving. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Honestly, I don't even think that's a hot Kyrie. I think that's a Brooklyn Nets. Are you all out of your mind?
They're like, folded, guys, we're down
like
too bad. We got to bring Kyrie back. We got to bring Kyrie back. And then he immediately goes on health and safety.
But like, it's not even that was hysterical, but it's like, yo, there's no such thing as a part-time NBA player. Like, are you serious? You just invented a new role in the league.
Well, but according to Bleacher Report, we're probably going to trade for Kyrie Irving. That's one of the suggestions. You don't want Kyrie Irving?
No, he's already on the Heat. My sources told me so.
You don't want Kyrie Irving on the Heat, though?
He's already on it. Kyrie himself called me and was like, girl.
You told me before. You said Kyrie Irving is my favorite NBA player of all time.
I have literally never said that. And now the lies are beginning. I'm off to watch the Chicago Bulls get another win. Good night, y'all.